we were not ready vibrationally to remember this information until we just completed a major cycle of unconsciousness, of darkness. Instead of feeding that fear, can we just be in love, in presence, and just be, a human? We're so much more ancient than we've been taught to believe. We have ancestors in the stars, and we have connections to worlds beyond this one. And I think that's how we come together and create a new world, the new Earth. There's a lot of doomsday dialogue and fear and division being purposefully channeled into our media, into our movies, the themes we see around us. And a lot of us feel like we're fucked, like we're screwed. And I basically want to encourage people to feel into that. Is that just the mind creating a story that's been imprinted from the external, whether that's, TV, whether that, I'm pointing over here because my TV is right here, whether that's on TV, whether that's in, all over social media, just the division and the fear that's just being pumped into us. It creates for a distorted view. It's like if you're viewing the world through dirty lenses, like you have to clean the lens to be able to clearly see. And so what does this all mean? Even though things are falling apart, and even though it's confusing and everything, the foundation that we've all built our lives on is crumbling, and there's almost nothing we can do about it, or at least we think that like I said, we're screwed, and that just it is what it is and there's nothing we can do. But I believe that the more we feel into that and feel into just the small things we can do in the moment, instead of feeding that fear, can we just be in love, in presence, and just be, a human? Because beyond the TV, beyond all these stories, this stuff that we're being fed, we are a human. We are a soul, an infinite soul having a temporary human experience. We're so much more than the stories, the agendas, the narratives, the ego constructs that we've just kind of been thrust into. And so for years, I first began my spiritual awakening in 2018, 2019, and ever since then, these same teachings have been coming to me that humanity's going through an awakening, it's gonna get darker before it gets better, that we're not dying, we're waking up, and that we just completed a major cycle of unconsciousness, of darkness, that was really divinely orchestrated. I do believe that, and science can show us this too, and a lot of the new research that's coming out is on the concept of the great year and the precession of the equinox, that basically our planet goes through cycles of 25,920 years, split into that great year cycle is split into two equal cycles of roughly 12,000 and change years. Also in that split is an era of darkness, of unconsciousness, of disconnection from spirit, 12,000 years of that, of darkness, followed by 12,000 years of light. And these cycles continue. 25,000 years ago was a different cycle broken up into these two equal halves. And if we track ancient civilizations, really look at the geological evenance and a lot of the teachings and things that have been coming out within the past, 20, 30, 40 years, that the Sphinx we were originally taught was built 2,000 years ago, but it was actually built maybe 30,000 years ago. There's all these theories now based on testing of the water erosion on the Sphinx and the land around it and new excavations. And it's important to remember too that a lot of this basis of truth and of knowing, the pyramids were built by slaves 2,000 years ago, or whatever the general consensus we're taught is, is these were stories that were created and purposefully designed to keep us within a box. Now, you can put the nefarious spin on it and say like, oh, these beings wanted to maintain control and keep us ignorant. But at the same time, we were not ready vibrationally to remember this information until the last 40 or 50 years, or maybe even the last 100 years. Many of us started coming online, being able to hold and anchor these frequencies, these energies. And so when you look at even the archaeological evidence of even older civilizations and skeletons that are found that are hundreds of thousands of years old, we can track these periods of light and darkness where when we are in periods of darkness, we're more in our primal roots. We're in the kind of like tribal essences, like I said, that primal energy of just basic, survival. And that's why I say the periods of darkness aren't necessarily bad. It's just we kind of forget who we are to evolve, and remember again that we go through these periods of darkness, forgetting who we are and losing our connection with our spiritual essences, with our past lives, with our soul blueprint. And we just, like I said, get back to those primal roots. And that lays a foundation, I feel like. And so those periods of darkness are that, and then the equal 12,000 year periods of light are periods of remembering. But there's smaller cycles within this where, consciousness builds and peaks, and then where consciousness descends and drops, and then turns and starts to ascend again. And so these periods of light are when we are connected to source, when we're connected to higher wisdom, higher dimensional beings, starseed lineages. This is why in one of the previous golden ages in Egypt, we built pyramids that mirrored our star ancestors. These lineages in Orion's belt from Mintaka, and also Sirius, the nearby star, the brightest star in our sky. A lot of temples are aligned to Sirius during certain astrological alignments as well, which from our, like I said, our fed programming, like the stories we've been told, we're told these stories of like, this is the way it was, this is what happened, this is the truth. But it portrays a very limited and ignorant human story. And I feel like there was so much more to the human being, 20, 30,000 years ago, even 12,000 years ago, when this last period of light ended. And so bringing it back real quick, we began a cycle of darkness, a cycle of ignorance, roughly 12,000 years ago when Atlantis sank. And I'm not going to go into all of those stories, but, Plato speaks of this civilization called Atlantis. A lot of other ancient teachers speak of this past civilization that pretty much rose to a point of power that was unstable and unnatural and was essentially destroyed by the gods. Or I do believe that a little bit, but I feel like it was this natural ending of a cycle, and these beings did rise. The beings of Atlantis rose to a point of power and consciousness that was unsustainable, unstable, and unnatural. And so that civilization fell. And that's when the great floods happened. All these flood myths, that you see in all the religions and a lot of these mythologies. And that flood marks the beginning of the age of darkness and unconsciousness and forgetting. And that's why I believe there were all these cataclysms. And from our human perspective, we can see like, oh my God, the gods destroyed us. They're evil. They're unforgiving. But I don't necessarily think it was like a bunch of dudes sitting up there like, all right, unleash the waters. I think, like I said, it was just a natural unfolding. And basically some divine forces may have had to step in to further that, because these beings were unnaturally trying to prolong this period of consciousness and advancement and light. Like I said, unnaturally, not honoring the natural cycles of life. It's almost like if we figured out how to keep the sun burning hot all year long and not having winter, that would throw off the balance of life and would destroy us. So we need these winters and these summers. And so 12,000 years ago, this cycle of darkness began. And for the last 12,000 years, we've been operating in this state of unconsciousness and in our primal animalistic programming, which is just survival of the fittest, provide for the family, protect, all, like I said, base level, a lot of root chakra stuff, tribal, relationships, those things. And we descended, and now we are rising again. And you can look at things like the Yuga cycles in Hinduism. You can look at the Mayan calendar and a lot of these mythic texts from ancient civilizations that say this period, this cycle of darkness is ending, or did end, in 2012. And that's why we had all of this end of the world propaganda and all this stuff kind of getting thrown at us that some things are changing. And underlying that is the story that this cycle of light is beginning again, that in 2012 we ended that cycle and began another. And it doesn't mean that like right on December 21st, 2012, cycle ended, new one began. It's more of an overlap process. And that's why you see, movements that happened in like the 1960s, and then the harmonic convergence in 1987 or 89, when consciousness began to rise and move more towards love and unity and remembering who we are beyond the meat suit. Because during this phase of unconsciousness that we were just in, we were only really identified with the physicality and overly identified with that. And we've been in the process of remembering even the last few hundred years. So I believe that this new cycle is shaking a lot of things up, and it's shining light. This cycle of light that began in 2012 is really shining light on these systems of oppression and these structures that are no longer serving us, that we are upholding because it's familiar and because it's just been thrown on to us. The systems of the way we eat, the way we work, the way we get our products, like all, the corporations and these things that we've built for convenience, and that they're not all bad. Like, I do believe that there's so much beauty in what we've built as a civilization and been able to pioneer and create despite our ignorance and despite the oppression from these systems we're in. But I do believe these systems are also, it's time for us to create something new. And the more we hold on to these things and submit ourself to things that don't serve us and that don't feel good and that make us like going to jobs that make us want to cry and like kill ourselves, and just this just pressure that we've been under that we don't need to be under anymore. And I know that's easier said than done because we all have bills. We all have to survive, and we have created things this way, and we're going to have to create new things, new structures. And that doesn't mean just like, quit your job and just see what happens. It means, how can you be more in your heart? And how can you move towards what feels alive in you? Meaning, your passions, your dreams, your intuitive knowing within that you're here for something greater than to just play small and to just submit to things that don't really feel good and don't light you up. And so the more we remember that these times we're in are sacred, I mean, all times are, but especially now, humanity is making a quantum leap in consciousness that I don't think has really been done before. That we've ascended, we've descended millions of times before, who knows? Our planet is billions of years old. Humanity is, at least I come to find, I think it's like 500,000 years old, way beyond the stories that we've been telling ourselves for a while. But we are a very ancient race, and we've accomplished a lot. But I think that what we're doing right now, that this remembering, despite all the pressure and despite all the programming and the distractions and the the toxicity and the substances and everything, like despite it all, we're still remembering, and we're still reaching towards the light, no matter how much darkness is weighing on our shoulders, telling us, don't do that. It's not safe. That's weird. We're still doing it. And I think that there's just something so beautiful about that, that even though we are surrounded by ignorance and darkness and these structures that, although are familiar to us, are not serving us at all, or anyone, the planet, nothing. Despite all of that, we're still here, and we're still trying, and we still have this inkling of a feeling that there's something else out there, that there's something beyond the matrix, the mainstream, the cookie cutter, tailored, perfectly constructed reality. And so I invite you to tune into that remembering, that inner feeling, and see where that goes. You know, follow the rabbit hole as deep as it goes. And I believe the more we know, the less we fear. And that doesn't mean load yourself up with information, you know, like just all the time. But the more you step outside of the realms of comfort, your comfort zone, what's familiar, you know, what we've been in forever, which is, you know, like a lot of what we were conditioned in school. You know, you trust authority, you read it in a book, you go to college, you know, like this base programming, you know, timeline we've been put on. Just question those things and step outside of them for a bit. You know, watch some Ancient Aliens. There's a lot of information unpacked in that show. And I know a lot of it can seem really woo-woo and really just like out there, you know, otherworldly, as they say. But my whole awakening, like, I've been on this path for about like 7 years now, and I think my whole life, but really waking up and like remembering, you know, downloads and researching for, I guess, like 6 years. And Ancient Aliens has basically like catalyzed and opened me up to so many profound truths. And I've seen that happen for so many people, that yeah, it can just be entertainment, and yeah, it is just kind of like some stories and some theories, but underlying all of that, there is a story that rings true to the inner being, that we've done this before, we'll do it again. We're so much more ancient than we've been taught to believe, and we have ancestors in the stars, and we have connections to worlds beyond this one. And I think that's how we come together and create a new world, the new earth. And so much love to everybody who tuned in to this. And if you would like to go deeper with me, I do have a website. It's ancientesoterica.com. It'll be in the description. And I offer soul readings, soul realignment sessions, psychic readings, spiritual awakening mentorship. And I love my knowledge, and I have been researching these topics for, like I said, about 6 years now, and I've been compiling all of that research into my knowledge base on my website, so you can check that out. Lots of articles up there about a variety of esoteric topics, whether it's starseed lineages or, you know, more conspiratorial stuff like, you know, shadow government and deep state, that stuff. And also just personal shares, you know, stuff about my awakening journey and my life experiences and how they've shaped me to be this human who's here on your screen with you right now. And so, yeah, check out my website, ancientesoterica.com. And my absolute favorite offering that I have, the first one I mentioned, my soul reading. If you feel called to discover your starseed lineages, your origins, if you feel like you're an alien on Earth and like you have a connection to the stars and you would like to really connect with that and understand it, I do these beautiful, beautiful soul readings where I tap into basically your divine soul blueprint in the Akashic Records and channel where your soul originates from, other worlds that you've spent time on, and also how you express energy. Because I've seen through this work and just through my life as a human that we all do have this spark of uniqueness within us, and very individual and personalized ways of expressing energy. And that can, it's not really like it can be fit into a box, but can be fit into certain qualities, basically certain qualities we express, archetypes, and life paths, situations, environments that most resonate with us. And so I go into all of that. It's pretty much like a snapshot of your divinity, your multidimensionality. And I love doing them, connecting with souls on that level. That Akashic level has always been just my favorite thing to do in the whole world. So if you feel called to tune into this and to kind of give yourself a quantum leap into understanding who you are beyond the human and beyond the meat suit, definitely check it out. And I wish you all so much wellness. I wish you all well, and I hope you have a beautiful evening. Much love and namaste, Sarah. Peace out.